Welcome to your Deep Dev. We got some excerpts from a YouTube interview with Gary Wayne, author of The Genesis 6 Conspiracy. And yeah, this one is going to be a fascinating one.
Oh yeah, this is going to be a fun one. Gary Wayne, he doesn't just skim the surface, right? I mean, he really digs into like genealogies, Hebrew word meanings, even exploring connections to ancient myths and secret societies.
It's true. It's true. It's like he's a detective almost, right? Piecing together these clues to uncover this like hidden history and it all seems to kick off with this really simple question like who was Cain afraid of after he killed Abel?
Yeah, that's it's interesting, right? One of those little details in the Bible that kind of makes you pause. The text says that Cain was afraid that others would kill him, but like if Adam and Eve are the only humans at that point, well then who are these others?
Okay, so how does Gary Wayne answer that?
He proposes a really bold idea. He says that there was another creation predating Adam and Eve. He points to the book of Genesis, specifically how the creation of humans in Genesis 1.2627 happens on day 6, separate from the Adam and Eve story in Genesis 2.4-25.
Wait, so you're saying that there's like two different creation stories in Genesis?
That's what Wayne argues, yeah. He believes that these aren't contradictions, but rather they are evidence of two separate events. For example, in Genesis 1, humans are told to like multiply and fill the earth, but in Genesis 2.8 and 2.15, God places Adam in the Garden of Eden. So these details seem to suggest distinct groups and timelines.
Okay, so if we kind of entertain this idea of two creations, what is that meaning for the overall biblical narrative, like the story that we're familiar with?
Well, I mean, it challenges the traditional timeline, right? I mean, it suggests a much more complex and potentially hidden pre-flood world than we typically imagine. It's like realizing there's this whole chapter of the story that we were missing.
Okay, yeah, my mind is already kind of bending a bit here. So two creations. Is there anything else that supports this idea?
Yeah, so Wayne also brings up this intriguing concept of two Enochs. So you have Enoch, the son of Cain, and then Enoch, the son of Jared from the line of Seth.
Hold on, two Enochs. I mean, isn't he the guy who walked with God and was taken up to heaven? How could there be two?
That's where this idea of a counterfeit comes in. This duality, one good, one evil. This is something that Wayne says is like a recurring theme in the Bible, where things aren't always as they seem.
So are we saying that, like, one of the Enochs is a bad guy?
Well, Wayne suggests that the Enoch descended from Cain developed what he calls the seven sacred sciences. Now, over time, these sciences, he argues, they became corrupted, and they were used for harmful purposes.
Okay, wait a minute, hold on. Seven sacred sciences. What exactly are we talking about here? Give me, like, some examples.
Think astrology, alchemy, and certain types of technologies. Wayne argues that these are all rooted in this ancient knowledge that he believes is now resurfacing in unexpected ways.
That's a really intriguing connection. I mean, we see the popularity of things like astrology and crystals everywhere these days. Is he suggesting that there's like a darker side to these, seemingly harmless trends?
Well, he believes there's a deeper history and potential for manipulation that we need to be aware of. He connects the biblical sons of God, mentioned in Genesis 6.1-4, with the Watchers described in the Book of Enoch.
Okay, back up for a sec. Who are the Watchers?
Wayne describes them as fallen angels who mated with human women, which resulted in the birth of giants, also known as the Nephilim.
So those stories about giants in mythology and folklore, Wayne is saying that those might be based on, like, actual events.
He draws parallels with ancient mythologies from all over the world, like Greek and Sumerian accounts, which also feature stories of, gods interbreeding with humans and creating powerful offspring. Giant legends are surprisingly prevalent across different cultures and time periods, making you wonder if there's more to these stories than just myth.
It's funny. I always just thought those were just, fun stories like tall tales. But if Wayne is right, there's this whole hidden history that we've been missing.
And that's where the idea of ancient knowledge being passed down through secret societies comes in. It's like there's this thread connecting these ancient events to modern times.
Okay, that's where things start to get a little, conspiracy theory for me. But before we go down that path, I have another question. If the flood wiped out everything except for those on Noah's Ark, how do we explain giants existing after the flood?
Yeah, it's a question that's puzzled a lot of people. Wayne explores several theories. One possibility is that some giants may have survived on arks of their own. There's hints of this in certain ancient myths. He even points to stories like the Epic of Gilgamesh, where a figure similar to Noah, a Babylonian figure, builds an ark to escape a great flood.
Right. Utnapishtim, I think, was his name. So some giant clans may have pulled a Noah of their own.
It's one possibility. Another theory that Wayne proposes is a second incursion of the fallen angels after the flood. essentially restarting that whole cycle of giant procreation.
Okay, two waves of fallen angels, but is there another explanation?
Wayne suggests that there could be a genetic component. What if Noah's daughters-in-law carried Nephilim genes, right? And those genes could have been passed down, reintroducing giants into the post-flood world.
And he actually ties these post-flood giants to specific biblical stories, right?
He does. He connects them to specific tribes and rulers. You have the Anakim, who terrified the Israelites when they entered Canaan. And what about King Og of Bashan, whose bed was reportedly 13 feet long?
13 feet. Whoa, that really puts into perspective just how large these figures were.
Yeah.
Wow.
These details from the Bible help ground Wayne's research in something tangible, right? He's not just theorizing, he's using, specific evidence to support his claims.
Okay, so we've got these giants potentially surviving the flood, maybe even, reappearing. But where does that leave us with the idea of the seven sacred sciences and this ancient knowledge, right? Where does that fit into the picture?
Well, that's where things start to get even more interesting. Wayne believes that Sodom and Gomorrah, cities often seen as just symbols of sexual sin, right, might hold a crucial clue.
Sodom and Gomorrah, I thought those cities were destroyed because of their wickedness, not because of giants.
Yeah, that's the common interpretation. But Wayne suggests, there's more of the story. He argues that Sodom and Gomorrah, known for their, advanced knowledge, described as this, shining city, could have been sites of renewed giant activity after the flood.
Okay, so how do giants tie into the destruction of these cities?
Wayne suggests that the inhabitants, already familiar with the practices connected to the giants, they may have attempted to mate with the angels who came to judge the city. This idea adds a whole other layer of complexity to that biblical account.
Whoa, that's a bold claim. What evidence does Wayne use to support this theory?
Well, he connects the biblical account with certain Gnostic texts. These texts actually place a second incursion of fallen angels at Sodom, rather than before the flood, which aligns with his overall timeline.
Okay, my head is spinning a bit, but let's shift gears for a second. You mentioned earlier that this ancient knowledge is being passed down through secret societies. What does that even mean, in a modern context? Are we talking about the Illuminati and Freemasons?
Well, Wayne does discuss groups like the Freemasons and the Illuminati, exploring their potential links to ancient mystery schools and those corrupted teachings of the fallen angels. He suggests that these organizations are vehicles for preserving that ancient knowledge and agendas that might oppose what's laid out in the Bible.
Okay, I have to admit, this is where I start to get a little skeptical. Secret societies controlling the world, it sounds like something out of a movie.
Yeah, it can sound far-fetched, but Wayne presents a lot of historical evidence to support the influence of secret societies, especially in areas like politics, finance, even religion. He argues that most people are simply unaware of the extent of their power and reach.
So if these groups are so powerful and so secretive, how are we supposed to even know they exist, let alone understand their goals?
Well, Wayne, he emphasizes the importance of discernment and critical thinking. He's not saying to just blindly accept any theory, but rather to examine the information available and draw your own conclusions. It's about connecting the dots and looking for patterns in history and current events.
He's basically encouraging us to be more aware, to question what we're told, and to do our own research.
Exactly. It's about becoming informed and discerning individuals, not just accepting the mainstream narrative, at face value.
So how does this all tie back to the idea of ancient knowledge resurfacing today? What does that look like in our world?
Well, Wayne, he argues that it's happening in a lot of subtle ways. Think about the growing interest in astrology, conspiracy theories, the increasing detachment from traditional religious beliefs, and even the rapid advancement of technology in ways that seem almost beyond our control.
It's funny you mention that. I never really thought about it before, but I've definitely noticed more and more people kind of turning to things like astrology and alternative spiritualities.
Right. Wayne sees these trends as a sign that humanity is moving away from the divine plan and becoming increasingly susceptible to the influence of these ancient corrupted teachings.
So what's the end game here? What does Wayne believe is the ultimate goal of these secret societies and the forces they represent?
Well, that ties into his research on end-time prophecy. He sees this resurgence of ancient knowledge, the rise of globalism, the moral decline in society. He sees these as signs pointing toward the last days as described in the Bible. He believes understanding pre-flood history and the influence of giants helps us to make sense of what's happening in the world right now.
It's almost like he's saying that we're living in this climax of a story that's been unfolding for centuries.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And as we approach the culmination of this story, Wayne believes that it's essential to be prepared, both spiritually and practically. Okay, prepared for what exactly? What are we preparing for?
He emphasizes strengthening our faith, deepening our understanding of the Bible, making choices that align with our values. He also suggests being mindful of the information that we consume, the company we keep, the way we engage with the world around us.
It sounds like he's advocating for kind of a be in the world but not of it approach. Stay informed, be aware of what's happening, but don't get swept up in the chaos or compromise your beliefs.
Exactly. It's about finding that balance between awareness and groundedness, between discernment and action.
This is a lot to take in, but it's strangely empowering in a way. I feel like I'm seeing the world with a new lens.
That's the beauty of deep dives like this. They challenge our assumptions, make us question what we thought we knew, and ultimately help us to see the world with fresh eyes.
Okay, so we've talked about secret societies and end time prophecy, but there's another piece of the puzzle I'm curious about. Wayne also discusses the Antichrist and his lineage. Is he suggesting that we can actually trace like the Antichrist's family tree?
He explores this idea that the Antichrist will likely come from a bloodline that goes back to the Nephilim or those ancient rulers who worship the fallen angels. He sees a connection between these ancient bloodlines and those who hold power today.
So are we talking about like specific royal families or powerful individuals?
Well, Wayne he doesn't name names explicitly, as the identity of the Antichrist is ultimately known only to God. However, he does present historical analysis that suggests that certain bloodlines, might be more likely to produce someone fitting that profile.
Okay, I have to admit that's a bit unsettling. It's like we're playing a real life game of Clue, but the stakes are infinitely higher.
Yeah, it's definitely thought provoking. But again, Wayne's intention isn't to instill fear, but to promote awareness and preparedness. Right? He believes that by understanding the historical and spiritual context, we can better discern the signs of the times and make wise choices.
So if we're talking about signs of the times, I have to ask about the role of technology. I mean, it's everywhere. It's constantly evolving, and it seems like it's increasingly shaping our lives. Does Wayne address this at all?
He does. He sees the rapid advancement of technology as both a potential tool for good and a potential weapon for evil. He points out that many technological breakthroughs, especially in areas like artificial intelligence and genetic engineering, are blurring the lines between humanity and something else entirely.
It's like we're on the verge of creating a world where like the lines between science fiction and reality are becoming increasingly blurred. Right.
And that's where discernment becomes crucial. We need to be asking ourselves, tough questions about the ethical implications of these advancements and whether they're ultimately serving humanity or something else.
This reminds me of all those like sci-fi movies about, artificial intelligence taking over the world. I used to think those were just, entertaining stories, but now I'm not so sure.
Right. Wayne, he argues that the spiritual battle we've been discussing is playing out in the realm of technology as well. He believes that the same forces that have been manipulated humanity for centuries are now using technology to further their agenda.
So what can we do about it? Should we be like ditching our smartphones and living off the grid?
It's not necessarily about disconnecting from technology altogether. It's about using it wisely and discerningly. It's about being aware of the potential dangers and making conscious choices about how we engage with it.
So it's about being mindful consumers, not just of products and services, but of technology as well.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that technology is a powerful tool that can be used for both good and evil, and it's up to us to decide how we want to use it.
This brings us back to that idea of personal responsibility and discernment that Wayne emphasizes, throughout his work.
Mm-hmm. He believes that knowledge is power, but only when it's combined with wisdom and a strong moral compass.
So it's not just about knowing the facts, it's about understanding their implications and making, choices that align with our values.
Right, and it's about recognizing that we're not just passive observers in this cosmic drama. We're active participants. Our choices matter and they have consequences.
Okay, so we've talked about, secret societies, end time prophecy, the Antichrist, the rapid advancement of technology. Where does this all lead us? What's the ultimate takeaway for our listeners?
What Wayne, he argues that the key to navigating these complex times is to remember that we're engaged in a spiritual battle. He believes that by aligning ourselves with God's truth and seeking His guidance, we can overcome the challenges that we face and ultimately fulfill our destiny.
So it's about understanding the nature of this battle, recognize its tactics of the enemy, and ultimately choosing to stand on the side of good.
Right. And remembering that, we're not alone in this fight. There are others who are, seeking truth, who are questioning the narrative, who are looking for answers.
It's about finding those people, connecting with them, supporting each other, and standing together against the forces of darkness.
Right. And never giving up hope. Even in the darkest of times, there's always light to be found, truth to be discovered, and good to be done.
It's easy to get overwhelmed by all this information, especially when it, challenges our preconceived notions and pushes us outside of our comfort zones.
It's true. It could be a lot to process, especially when we're confronting ideas that are, so different from what we've been taught to believe.
But I think that's also the beauty of, deep dives like this. They force us to expand our minds, to consider new perspectives, and to question the narratives that we've been given.
Right. They remind us that there's always more to learn, more to discover, and more to understand about the world around us.
Okay, I have to ask, you've clearly spent a lot of time studying, Gary Wayne's work in these complex topics. Has this research changed your perspective on the world in any way?
It definitely has. It's made me more aware of the subtle influences that shape our thoughts, our beliefs, and our actions. I've become much more discerning about the information I consume, the company I keep, and the choices that I make.
It sounds like you've embraced that idea of personal responsibility and discernment that Wayne emphasizes.
I have. I believe it's essential to be an active participant in shaping our own destiny rather than simply reacting to events as they unfold.
And that's ultimately what Wayne is calling us to do, isn't it? To become more aware, more discerning, and more engaged in the world around us.
Exactly. He's calling us to step out of the shadows, to embrace the truth, and to become agents of positive change in a world that desperately needs it.
And he's reminding us that we have the power to do so. We may not be able to control, all the events that unfold around us, but we can control how we respond to them.
Right. We can choose to be informed, discerning, and proactive rather than ignorant, passive, and reactive.
And ultimately, that's where true empowerment lies.
I believe so. It's about taking ownership of our lives, our beliefs, and our actions, and recognizing that we have the capacity to make a difference in the world.
So what does that look like in a practical sense? How can our listeners take all this information and, apply it to their everyday lives?
Well, start by becoming more aware of the influences around you, right? Pay attention to the messages you're receiving from the media, from social media, from the people in your life. Ask yourself, who benefits from me believing this? And does this align with my values?
It's about becoming more critical of the information that we're bombarded with and making conscious choices about what we allow to influence our thoughts and beliefs.
Exactly. It's also about being more intentional about the company we keep, right? Surround yourself with people who support your growth, who challenge you to think differently, who inspire you to become the best version of yourself.
And don't be afraid to question the status quo, to challenge authority, and to speak up for what you believe in, even if it's unpopular.
That's right. It's about having the courage to stand up for what's right, even when it's difficult, even when it's uncomfortable.
And it's about remembering that we're not alone in this journey. There are others who are fighting the same battles, who are seeking the same truth, who are working towards the same goals.
Right. Connect with those people, support each other, learn from each other, and together we can create a world that is more just, more compassionate, and more aligned with the divine plan.
It's easy to get caught up in the fear and negativity that surrounds us, especially in times like these.
It's true. It can feel like we're constantly bombarded with bad news, with negativity, with reasons to be afraid.
But I think it's important to remember that we have a choice. We can choose to focus on the darkness, or we can choose to focus on the light.
And that's ultimately what Wayne is calling us to do, isn't it? To be beacons of light in a world that's grown increasingly dark.
To be agents of hope in a world that's lost its way.
And to never give up on the fight for a better future, even when it feels impossible.
So dear listener, as we wrap up this deep dive, we want to leave you with a few final thoughts.
Remember that knowledge is power, but only when it's grounded in truth and guided by wisdom.
Be deserving, be prepared, and most importantly, stay connected to your faith.
And as you journey through life, keep your eyes open, your mind sharp, and your heart aligned with God's truth.
And remember, send us your questions, your topics, your thoughts, everything you've got at our website, and we will see you on our next deep dive. It can be, a little overwhelming trying to kind of sort through all this information, and figure out what it all means for our lives. It's almost like Wayne is suggesting that we're living in this giant, ancient, polytheistic ritual without even realizing it.
Mm. Yeah, that's one of the most intriguing aspects of his work. He encourages us to think about the symbolism that's woven into our everyday lives. Like look at our holidays. Look at our architecture, our art, even our language. Wayne argues that many of these elements can be traced back to practices designed to honor those fallen angels and their offspring, the giants.
Okay, so you're saying that things like, Christmas trees and Easter eggs, they have some hidden, darker meaning. Should we be ditching all our traditions and becoming modern day hermits?
No. Wayne's message isn't about fear or isolating ourselves from the world. It's about awareness. He wants us to be conscious of where our beliefs and practices come from, and be mindful of the symbolism we embrace.
So it's like being a thoughtful consumer, not just of what we buy, but of the ideas and traditions that we adopt as well.
That's a great way to put it. Yeah, we have a choice in what we allow to influence us.
Yeah, we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive. Multiple creations, competing Enochs. Giant conspiracies, ancient knowledge, secret societies, end time prophecy, even the Antichrist's family tree. It's a lot to take in, even for someone like me who loves exploring these kinds of topics.
I know, right?
Right.
It is a lot to process, but remember, Wayne's intention isn't to overwhelm us with information. He wants to empower us with knowledge, right? By understanding this bigger picture, by recognizing the spiritual forces at play. He believes that we can navigate the world with more confidence and make better decisions.
So where do we go from here? What are we supposed to do with all this information?
Well, Wayne, he encourages everyone to continue their own research, dive deeper into the topics that resonate with you, and don't be afraid to share what you learn with others.
So he's saying, don't just take my word for it. Explore, question and challenge the accepted narrative.
Yeah, that's the spirit of true inquiry. And ultimately, he emphasizes the importance of staying grounded in our faith, seeking guidance from a higher power, and trusting our intuition.
So it's about finding that balance between knowledge, discernment, and faith.
Exactly. It's about using all the tools at our disposal to navigate this complex world and live a life that is both meaningful and fulfilling.
Well, dear listener, we've given you a lot to ponder today. We would love to hear your thoughts and what resonated most with you from this deep dive into Gary Wayne's work. And remember, knowledge is power, especially when facing the unknown. Until next time, keep digging deeper.